They say the lower noble houses of Palperroth throw the best parties. Not the grand balls of the king's court, no. I mean the gatherings where new money rubs shoulders with old names. Where desperation and decadence swirl together like wine in a glass. These are places where the furniture gleams but the foundations creak. And I had every intention of slipping through those cracks. I remember the scent first, cinnamon oil and cheap cologne, the kind of blend that tells you someone wants to smell expensive but doesn't quite know how. The manor belonged to Lord Ettrick Halvan, a minor noble with a bloated ego and a recently inherited title. He was the sort who believed himself clever for hosting scholars at one table and mercenaries at the next. A patron to all Palperroth, they said. More like a collector of borrowed brilliance. I wasn't on the guest list, of course, but I knew a man who was. A half-blind shipping magnate with gout in both feet and a habit of repeating himself. I spent a week at his tavern, nursing watered ale and listening to his stories until I could mimic his cadence perfectly. When he finally took ill, I sent his regrets to the Halvan estate myself in writing. That night, I wore one of Valara's early suits. Cream pinstripes, charcoal waistcoat, collar stiff with pride. I entered through the front gate, nodded at the doorman with that half-smile nobles wear when they're pretending to remember your face, and stepped inside. No one stopped me. No one ever does. The foyer was a garden of faces, painted ones, rouge and powder, waxed mustaches and powdered wigs. Even though fashion had moved on, Palperroth nobles clung to the past like it owed them money. I gave my name, or rather the name of the man I was impersonating, and the steward, squinting down a list too long for his station, simply nodded me through. I made conversation as I passed from room to room, nothing of substance, just enough to seem familiar. Nobles are too proud to admit they've forgotten your name, and that's the game. The ballroom was lit with a dozen floating globes flickering like stars trapped in amber. Musicians played something cheerful, but every note felt forced. That's how these events always feel, as if the music, the wine, the laughter, it's all trying to distract you from something hollow underneath. I let myself blend in. I spoke with a merchant who smuggled sapphires and barrels of salted fish. I spoke with a priestess who wore a tiara she claimed to have once belonged to the queen. I even danced once with a lady whose perfume stung my eyes, but whose steps were graceful and assured. All the while, I watched Lord Halvan. He drank heavily. He greeted guests with an exaggerated flair, clapping too loudly, laughed too long. A man desperate to be liked or noticed. Perfect. After his fifth glass of brandy, he made a show of slapping his thigh and announcing to a small circle of listeners, "You haven't seen a collection like mine. Real art, real treasure. None of that commission fakery. I keep it downstairs, out of reach naturally." I laughed just loud enough. "You were always a man of taste, Ettrick." He turned, blinking at me. I saw the doubt flicker behind his eyes. He didn't know who I was. But I said it with such ease, such familiarity, that to question it would be to admit ignorance. He chuckled, clapped my shoulder. "Of course, come, I'll show you. You've an eye for the finer things, haven't you?" Yes, I thought, and a hand for them too. The vault was hidden behind a tapestry, some battle scene terribly painted. He pressed a stone in the wall and a panel clicked. It was all very theatrical. The stairs wound downward into a cold chamber lined with sconces and lined with self-importance. Inside, gold inlaid chalices, heirloom blades, rare coins, a scroll said to be penned by a long-dead prophet. It was everything a man like him would prize. symbols of wealth without purpose. He rambled on, drunkenly naming items, their origins, their value. I nodded, admired, smiled, all the while scanning for something he wouldn't miss. Not tonight, at least. Then I saw it. A pendant in the shape of a bird. Modest, not gilded, no jewels, but old. Handmade. The kind of piece given, not bought. He brushed past it without a word. Perfect. As he turned to show me a genuine drake's tooth, I pocketed the pendant. It was small, it fit in the lining of my jacket. If he noticed it gone tomorrow, he'd blame a servant, or his memory. He never even looked back. We returned upstairs. I toasted his collection and thanked him for the honor, and then excused myself with promises to meet again. He smiled, half slurred, and turned to greet another guest. I was gone before he finished the sentence. That night I walked the frost-bitten streets back toward the quiet districts, past the alleyways where children sleep in burlap, past the soup kitchens where broth stretches thin. I held that pendant between my fingers and wondered who gave it to him, or even if he remembered. The next day I sold it for a sum that could feed 10 families through the winter. I gave half to charity, of course, and the rest I kept and tucked away for my next endeavor. Funny thing about the upper class, they're more afraid of looking foolish than being robbed, so they never ask if you belonged there. And by the time they do, you're already gone.